All right, streaming should be live.
All right. Pull up. This is a call to order, the German Village Commission hearing, Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. It is 4:04 p.m. We are live on the virtual hearing via WebEx. The next commission business meeting will be 12 noon, Tuesday, February 15th, 2021, on the WebEx as well. And the next commission hearing will be 4 p.m. Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021 via WebEx. We'll move on to swearing in of staff. Staff, please raise your right hand. Did you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Jacqueline Laitman, Assistant Historic Preservation Officer. I do.
Thank you. I'll move on to introduction of commissioners present. Myself, Anthony Hartke, Chair. Put on the list, Commissioner Durst.
Present.
Commissioner Thiel.
Present.
Commissioner Ferriel. Jeff. I see you there. Commissioner Ferriel is present. Commissioner McCoy will not be in attendance. Commissioner Foley, welcome back. Congratulations.
Thank you. Present.
And Commissioner Panzer, working on getting him the invite sent over to him. He'll be here shortly. All right. 2 seconds to get this forwarded on. Send. Sorry about that. We'll move on to the approval of minutes from Tuesday, January 5th, 2021.
I so move.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Thiel, a second by Commissioner Durst. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, we'll take the vote. Commissioner Durst,
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel,
Aye.
Commissioner Ferriel,
Aye.
Commissioner Foley.
I will abstain.
All right. Commissioner Foley abstains. Chair votes aye. Ayes have it. Motion passes. Let the record show we do have Commissioner Panzer on now. That's good.
Hello, hello.
Nope. We'll move on to items for public forum. Jacqueline, we have a note here of Kevin Wheeler. Is Mr. Wheeler providing another update, or is that from last month?
Oh, that's from the business meeting. I forgot to take that off, so no public forum.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move on to staff approvals. Please take a look at the staff approvals.
Anthony, I need to abstain from item 1, GV 2102-006.
Okay. Are there any other abstentions?
You're going to have to give me just a second here. Well, I'm just going to abstain from the approval. It's easier to do it that way.
Okay.
I move that we ratify the staff approvals.
I second.
All right. We got a first Commissioner Durst, a second Commissioner Thiel. Any questions on the motion? We'll take the vote. Commissioner Panzer abstains. Commissioner Durst.
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel.
Aye.
Here we go. Commissioner Ferriel.
Aye.
Commissioner Foley.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Ayes have it. Motion passes. All right. We'll move on to the applications. The first item of the staff recommend applications, GV-21-02-006, 630 South 3rd Street. Looking for the applicants. Is there anybody here for GV-21-02-06, 630
Yes,
South
this
3rd
is
Street?
Ted Muselowitz from Garman Miller Architects.
I'm sorry, Anthony. This is the one I have to abstain from. I'll stop my video. I apologize.
You're good. All right. Mr. Michalowicz, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. Jacqueline?
Okay, this application is for the installation of a ground sign for the current owner, and that is to be approximately the same size and the same location as a previous sign located at this property for a previous owner. And the proposed sign would be painted aluminum. It would be a box sign. So in response to Commissioner questions from the January 19th business meeting, the applicant confirmed that they do not intend to use ground lighting and that this sign was unfortunately removed before dimensions could be taken, but the applicant has tried to estimate the size of the main body of the sign using cues from the photos and tried to base their new proposed sign based off of the size that they estimated from those photos. So the GVC guidelines note that wall and projecting signs are generally favored over signs resting on the ground. However, as the historic school, which this building is, does not have a historic attached sign, it is not a commercial style building, staff does find that a ground sign would be the most compatible for this specific building. So staff does recommend approval of the application as submitted.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Does the applicant have anything else to add?
I'd only add that the current owner really wishes to have just a simple sign in roughly the same location and size as the previous one. As you may know, the previous sign had some additional features on it that this is a simpler sign with really trying to keep it as basic colors as possible. So we do know, though we don't have the original sign to go off of, we do know where it was at based on the stone planting bed that you can see around there that it's located in. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion on application number one, application GV 21-02-006, 630 South 3rd Street, to approve it as submitted with the notation that though it exceeds our typical size, it is in effect replacing a sign that has long been part and parcel of the 3rd Street landscape, streetscape on German Village. Sorry, trouble talking there.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Durst has a second. Any questions on the motion? Take the vote. Commissioner Panzer,
Aye.
Commissioner Durst,
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel,
Aye.
Commissioner Ferriel,
Aye.
Commissioner Foley. Nope, is recusing. Chair votes aye. Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 2, which is GV-21-02-007, 121 East Whittier Street. We have, I see Nelson Genscheft.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, I'm looking for your camera. 1 second.
No,
I see your
it's
camera now.
on.
You please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
Nelson Genshaft.
Thank you very much. Jacqueline?
So this project is to replace wood steps leading from a brick pathway to the front porch with limestone steps. It would also include the repair and replacement of one cracked wood plank at the top of the porch stair and rotting wood at the handrail. And the applicant would like to repair the brick pathway by stabilizing the bricks. So in response to commissioner questions at the business meeting, the applicant has submitted older photos demonstrating that the steps were previously located in a different location and are not original. And from those photos, they do appear to have originally been stone. And staff has also included another photo from the German Village Society archives from approximately the 1990s, which additionally appear to show the porch stairs to be stone and in another location. So staff does recommend approval of the application as submitted.
All right. Does the applicant have anything else to add? Mr. Genshaft, anything else you want to add?
No, sir.
All right. Questions, comments from the commission?
I seem to recall that I had a question that had to do with the width of the steps and its relationship to the handrail, because it's going to change. And I don't know whether this makes any difference necessarily, but I mean, there were no handrails originally. But the photograph of the existing that we're looking at shows the railing coming down and actually ending in a newel post on the first step. The photograph that we've got of an exemplar of what's being proposed shows shows a rail going down beside the steps, which would seem to indicate that because the rail has to end at the porch post, that the steps are now going to be considerably short, considerably a foot shorter or whatever, foot and a half shorter than what they are now. I just want to make sure everybody understands that and that we're okay with it.
So I think the applicant could speak better to this, but I forgot to include, staff did ask that question and they said there wasn't going to be any change from the proposed configuration as it stands now. The example photo just shows a little bit different, but I would have the applicant confirm just so we can make sure of that.
Jacqueline, that is correct. We don't plan to change the dimensions of the steps. There's still 3 steps, same width, with the handrail ending in the bottom step.
You can't end, I mean, you can, it's just really, it's a really bad idea to end a rail, to put a newel post anchored into the stone. What we see happening everywhere when that's been done, not everywhere, but the vast majority of cases, is that you ultimately get water leaking into the stone, and then you get the freeze thaw and the edge of the stone cracks. There are a ton of examples of that. So I don't know whether that's why the people who did the steps that we're looking at in the photograph, well, not the one right now, but yeah, that one, whether that's why they ran the newel post. But I'm just saying, I think you'd be better off running the newel post beyond the bottom step and landing it and planting it through the brick rather than trying to anchor it into the bottom step.
Okay. I wasn't focused on that, Jay, but thank you. That's a good suggestion.
I don't think it's a material change from what's been proposed, but I just.
Jay, I'd recommend that if we make the motion to give the option of either on the step as submitted or past the step as recommended. Because at the end of the day, I think it's the applicant's decision to make if they want to have a longer lasting detail. It's kind of theirs call to make. Does that work?
Works for me.
Works for the applicant.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? If there are none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion on application, agenda item number 2, application DV 21-02-007, 121 East Whittier, to approve as amended by the applicant, add the option of landing the bottom newel post in the ground beyond the bottom step, or in the step as is currently shown.
Second.
I heard a second from Commissioner Farrell. Any questions on the motion? We'll take a vote. Commissioner Panzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Durst?
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Aye passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move on to item number 3, which is GV-2 GV-20-11-024 1054 Pearl Street as a continued application. We have an applicant here for 1054 Pearl Street. All right, we'll put that one on the table and come back to it. Item number 4, GV-21-01-024, 180 Thurman Avenue. We have an applicant for 180 Thurman Avenue. All right, we'll put that one aside as well. On to item number 5, GV-21-01-022, 247 Lansing Street. I think I saw Mr. Cox there. Walter Cox, please unmute yourself. And if you raise your right hand, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you very much. Please state your name for the record.
Walter Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Jacqueline?
Okay, this application is to replace existing garage doors with a new single garage door due to the narrowness of the alley per the submitted materials. The applicant has updated their garage door options that they would like to include. That didn't quite carry over to here, but maybe the agenda. So there's 3 options. Okay, and those include the Clopay Coachman, the Clopay Classic Wood Flat Panel Design, or the Clopay Avanti, and those are put in the order of the preference for the applicant. And so in response to commissioner feedback from the January 5th hearing, the applicant has submitted these possible garage door options, and the applicant would like to continue the request for a single garage door, and they would like to have the garage door be 16 feet single garage door. And then at the January 19th business meeting, some commissioners did reiterate their concern regarding the switch to a single wide garage door from the 2 individual doors. And the commission requested photos of all door options, and there should be photos included in the materials. So staff recommends replacing garage doors with doors that have a smooth finish, and those to be 2 wider doors if the commission finds it feasible with the alley size, but if not feasible for a single garage door to be trimmed to have the appearance of 2 doors. And that is based on the German Village guidelines, specifically number 6 under new buildings, garages, and outbuildings.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Mr. Cox, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I just like to say thanks for your time on this, but I understand the aesthetics and remaining keeping that throughout the village. And it does set a precedence, as I think Mr. Panzer noted before. But there's very limited room here for my wife and I to get the car in and out. I can get the car in and out, with 4 or 5 maneuvers. But my wife, for safety purposes, refuses to pull the car in or out of the garage. We need to use the neighbor's aprons in the driveway upon trying to get to help us get into it. And then upon getting into it, there's about 2 inches on each of the mirrors once we start to back in and straighten it out. To pull it out, it takes a couple maneuvers to pull it out so we don't hit that home that's right on the alley edge. And I know Mr. Panzer in the past, it was 20, is it 20 feet or less or 20 feet or more? It's right at 20 feet from my edge of my garage to that other side of the alley in that house. I just, like I said, I know you look at it from an aesthetic value. I would hope that you would consider the safetiness for my wife and I to change this to a 16-foot door, which I know is more conventional throughout the village, hence my request for 16-foot from an 18-foot door. I just hope that you'll see it from our point of view and allow us to put a 16-foot door in. And thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the commission?
The photograph that we have that is immediately before, hold on for a second. It's immediately before the Clopay Coachman construction.
page 8 of the PDF. That one right there.
Yeah, that one. What door is that?
I believe that's the Coachman Door, Mr. Panzer.
Thank you. Because that's one of the ones that we had significant problems with.
Okay, I thought you had proved that in the past.
Am I mistaken here? This isn't the one that got sanded down, is it?
Mr. Panzer, from my recall, and maybe Jacqueline can shed some light on it, but I understood that you had approved the Coachman and the owner had changed it to a different door, and you experimented with sanding that door that he had changed it to, and the experiment didn't work. That's as I understand it. But
So the sample that we had of the Coachman that I have photos of in the file, that's not the trim that was on the sample. The sample that we had seen didn't have that faux grooving of the wood on the trim. I think that's what's throwing us right now.
I think this picture was submitted by Precision Garage Doors of one that they have installed. I would use a flat panel door, just like similar to the one that we have on there. The one we have on there is a Haas door, and it's a flat panel door, and that's what I want to use. I don't need to use a decorative type door.
As Commissioner Harkey just said, it really, I mean, we do believe in having a door that looks, relatively like the Coachman in the next photo. But the problem that we've had all along are these doors that have this heavy faux wood grain and heavy. I mean, the pebbled surface is a little bit different, but it pretends to be rough-hewn wood, which is not what was ever used on these things. These things were always finished, always finished materials.
Right.
I seem to recall that you're right. The Clopay had been approved, and I think it was approved as a test, and I think it was a failure. But because I certainly would view anything that looked like the larger photograph that we were looking at, page 8, I would view that as a fail. That's just me. I'm one among 7.
Mm-hmm. Look, if I can ask a question, I guess the first question is this, you all need to approve a 16-foot door, and if that's okay with y'all, then I'll pursue a door that y'all will approve. I mean, there's no sense in beating up the door if a 16-foot's not going to pass.
You make a great point.
Yes. Commissioner Panzer, what's your thought on the 16-foot door? Let's get on the list of commissioners and get the feel for the width of the door.
I don't know whether it's because I'm getting older or what, but I'll buy it.
Commissioner Durst, 16-foot versus none, or versus double doors.
Since he's right at 20 feet, I'm okay with the 16-foot door.
Commissioner Thiel,
I'm okay.
Commissioner Ferriel,
Yeah, me too. The turning radius here is meager.
all right. So you have 4, and we'll do a check. Commissioner Foley, what's your thought on 16-foot?
No problem with it.
Okay, I'm the lone holdout. So you got the majority.
Thank you, everybody.
Almost everybody.
So to move forward, so you got the 16-foot. Now I got to nail down the door type. I guess the question would be, Jacqueline, are you comfortable? Do you know what we're looking for at the doors enough to make an approval, or do you need us to give you the direction?
I believe I do, and I could always submit it as an old business item if I feel like the staff's not completely sure, if we want to get, another opinion from the commission.
This is Ned. I have a question. So is his first choice the Avanti, which is extremely different from the other two?
No, that I didn't update that earlier part of the staff recommendation. So I think that it might be the third choice. Is that correct, Mr. Cox?
Yes, that would be my third choice. It's the most expensive out of the three. The classic wood is, it's got a lantern finish. It's a flush. There's no, it's a flat panel, so there's no architectural stuff on that door. And that would be that's the second most expensive, and the most economical is the Coachman. But if you want me to do one of the other two, I would consider doing one of the other two.
So for the commission, does anybody have an issue if the Coachman can be found with the trim pattern we're looking? I'm assuming that's acceptable to everybody. Anybody got a problem with that specific application?
Anthony, I thought that we had kind of zeroed in on solving this problem where we had a door that was visually like the Coachman, yet did not have that heavy grain on the trim. I mean, I know I've seen that, so.
The Coachman sample that I had got my hands on, that trim did not have that patterning. So
Okay.
I'm wondering if that photo is just the incorrect photo for that trim. And the Coachman does have what we're looking for.
Okay.
The alternative we found to that, the Clope has a Canyon Ridge, which is a composite, which we found to be acceptable. And the other one was a CHI door, was one that we found acceptable.
I looked at the Canyon Ridge. I haven't gotten a price from Precision Doors, but that door will work for me. If it'll work for y'all.
If you'd like to amend your application to have the Canyon Ridge as the primary, I think we can vote to approve that. And then if you change your mind and want to go something else, you can come back for something else. I think that gives you a path forward at least.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that.
So to the commissioners, I sent out the photos of Canyon Ridge a while back, just circulated amongst ourselves. It was the darker door that you see in the photos. Is there any heartache or problems with that specific door?
Not me.
I'm hearing none. I would recommend that we just officially do it as a test case so we can see it and put this door officially in the realm of approvable for the record.
Okay, Canyon Ridge, yes.
So if there's no qualms with that, is there a motion as amended?
Sure. I'm not waiting around anymore. On agenda item number 5, application GB 21-01-022-247 Lansing Street, to approve as amended by the applicant to utilize a Clope Canyon Ridge carriage house door with the final style to be submitted to staff for approval.
Second.
We have a second. I'd make the comment that they should be framed to look as if they were two separate panels, even though it's a single 16-footer.
Okay.
All right. Any questions on the motion? We'll take the vote. Commissioner Panzer.
Aye.
Commissioner Durst.
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel.
Aye.
Commissioner Ferriel.
Aye.
Commissioner Foley.
Aye.
And the chair votes nay. Ayes have it. Motion passes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. All right. Moving on to item number 6, GV-21-01-027, 757 City Park Avenue.
Brenda Parker's here, the architect.
All right. Ms. Parker, please raise your right hand.
I think the owner's on too, Judith.
Yeah, I'm on as well. But,
All right.
But you're going to talk.
All right. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your names for the record.
Brenda Parker.
And Ms.
Judy
Bleedy.
Palady.
Okay. Jacqueline.
Okay, this application is to construct a 2-story addition to an existing 1.5-story house. The application has previously been reviewed as a conceptual at the December 1st hearing, and it was also continued from the January hearing. So feedback that had been made included that at the January 5th hearing, the commission noted that the proposed addition should conform to the German Village guidelines and that the lot coverage as proposed is a concern. So the applicant has submitted updated materials in response to commissioner feedback. And staff recommends approval that with the condition that the addition meets the standards for alteration and the German Village guidelines, and those being specifically C and E for the standards for new construction.
All right. Thank you very much. Applicant, have anything else to add?
So when we looked at the project last month, we had a single roof height that was 2 foot above the existing ridge. We have since partitioned the addition into 2 sections. The section that's married up to the existing house, we've dropped that roof, I believe, a foot below the existing ridge. And for the part that's in the way back, that ridge is set to align with the existing ridge. So it does give it a little bit more dynamic in the roof line, so it's not just kind of a single level roof. So it breaks up. It's not quite the hyphen concept, but gives it a little bit of differentiation in the heights of the roofs to break up the massing.
Okay. Questions, comments from the commission?
Oh, also, sorry, we did reduce the lot coverage. Originally, we were asking for 54%, and we've reduced that down to 51%. We tried really, really hard to get it to 50% to meet the zoning code, but we just couldn't get the program to fit in at the second floor.
Okay. All right. Commission questions, comments?
I have a question. There's something about the elevation drawing, the east elevation, that it's like, I don't think it's wrong, but there's something slightly screwy going on, and that is that what you don't see that you see on the south elevation is the kind of the notch cut out on the second floor.
So there's actually a solid wall. If you zoom in on that south elevation, you'll see there's a wall so that it creates privacy for the balcony from the front.
If you go to the next page,
So there's a trim board on that solid wall that you're seeing there.
Yeah, if you go to the 3D drawing, Jay, you can see it too.
Yep. Oh, yeah, sorry, on the one on the right. I was actually looking at the one on the left where it's kind of ghosty, but yeah, the one on the right makes it clear.
Hey, this is Ned. I am still not comfortable with flat roofs on this project just because it doesn't represent anything in the neighborhood nearby or and I know there were some conversations 2 meetings ago that I was not involved in, but boy, I am not, can't go there. The other thing is rhythm of windows and patterns of doors and stuff on the elevations and stuff. This embedded second porch is extremely alien to the village. I'm not quite sure why it's even there. I can understand maybe from a functional point on the inside, but outside just does not come anywhere near anything we've ever had before. And I think of, we have second story decks, etc., but they're always over back porches or out the back of the building, not down along the side. And if I remember correctly, this is pretty close to an adjacent property next door, which is also of concern.
I would say that typically those little cutouts that we see historically are on the first floor. It's kind of a historic thing, but I would second your comment about having on the second floor. Is something that I haven't seen personally.
Yeah. I mean, on the first floor, that little piece that's still there would be the restroom, the bathroom on the first floor, and the other part would be a porch that was used to service the kitchen.
Commissioner Foley, it's your first meeting back in a while. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm absorbing it a little. I'm trying to put it through the lens of what we always put new construction through, right? So varying 1 to 2 of the 3 things, one being massing and scale, one being material, and one being, what's the third? Help me.
Detail.
Detail. And so as I think about the project, the materiality seems to be appropriate. The detailing is kind of halfway there. I'm kind of with Ed on the location of some of the windows and things. It just seems a little odd. The massing is very different. And I was trying to look. There is a adjacent site, but it looks like I don't know if that's a taller building. Oh no, there's an adjacent site with a flat roof, but I don't know if that's a contributing. Oh, I know exactly where this is. This is really close to my old house. Okay. There's that building on Pearl that has a flat roof, Ned, right there.
It's right behind the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to live at 37 East Columbus, so I was right there.
Okay. Yeah. You were close.
Right across the street from that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the house to the south has a very similar setup to what we've got right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm deciding in my head. I'm trying to decide whether or not the massing and scale is so different that it makes it too alien for me. But that's the thing they're varying, right? The massing scale and then some of the window detailing, I think, in regards to how that would be typically on a building.
If you look at the house to the south, I think we have a photograph of it.
Page 13 of the application.
Yeah, you can see that's the house right next door. So the massing is pretty similar to that.
And I think that's the house that the balcony's looking out toward. So it's not looking at anyone windows. No one can even see it.
And we have distance in there too, don't we, Brenda? We have enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the difference in massing, I think, in that house is that house does have a pitched roof on it, but it's also pretty massive. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like that was probably 2 additions on that house. I'm on Google, kind of zooming around right now.
Yeah. And Brett, I'm not sure if you were there during December's meeting, but it was suggested to us to do the flat roof, and that's why we did it, to be honest.
I see. No, I've been out for the last 2 months, so I wasn't there.
Yeah, I missed that meeting also, but I don't think I can stretch to Pearl to get a flat roof on City Park.
I'm thinking about where this, or these, as the case may be, flat roofs are, and the degree to which they impact the public way. The degree, I mean, could you see them if you were looking for them? Yeah, you probably could, but they are well protected from the public way. I think lowering the roof below the ridge, kind of into the same sort of plane as the dormer that's on the side, certainly helps. The cutaway is a little unusual, but again, if you look at massing as being, as being the variant, we are, our guidelines say or imply, probably both, that you have to vary one of them. You can vary 2 if you get it right, and you can't vary all 3, because if you vary all 3, then it's just, that kind of means that it is incongruent with the with the original structure. I mean, I'm having some trouble with it, but I think that it has improved, and I don't think that I have a good enough reason to say no. Let's put it that way. I don't want to jump up and down, but we need to. Again, something we frequently say is that we need to start from a place of yes and find things that make it so wrong as to require us to say no. And that's where I'm getting. I'm not finding anything here that requires that I say no.
So Jay, to piggyback on that a little bit, the massing is obviously varying. The question I have is the detailing varying when you think about, and it's a question, it's not an answer.
But is the detail varying? I'm sorry, Brent, go ahead.
Well, if you look at the west elevation and just the nature of where those windows are placed, and I'm seeing that as kind of the idea of detailing that I'm getting at, and those massive walls.
I get it, but who sees that west elevation?
It's a fair point. I'm just trying. That's where my head is processing it, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, as well or better than anyone else who's on this call that you never see anything in pure elevation, and you look at where this is viewed from the public way, and would you really notice the window proportions from what little you could see of the, from the front elevation?
You wouldn't be able to see any of those windows on the west elevation anywhere from the public way that I could think of. Maybe on Pearl, there's an empty lot that you could maybe see. There's some trees and things, but no.
So, I mean, we let people open up the entire rear of houses, to put in sliding glass door, well, not sliding glass doors, accordion glass doors in several cases. It's backyard. It's a little different because it's a side, but it's not anything that I think is going to be perceived, or at least significantly perceived.
Just out of curiosity for the applicant, there's a very large tree. Is that in your yard or is that in the neighbor's yard?
That's in the neighbor's yard.
So that will be remaining.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, pieces of it have fallen off in my yard, but
we've all been there.
Yeah, but it'll be there, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think I'm landing in the same place you are, Jay, honestly. It just meets the threshold in my mind.
Commissioner Ferriel or Durst, any thoughts against?
Well, to me, it's pushing the limits of massing. The house next door, so with massing there, I'm not sure how that cuts. To me, it kind of says, well, gee, isn't there already a lot of massing in this little corner of the village?
It's pushing you to the edge of massing. Is it pushing you up to the edge or over the edge?
Well, to me, it's the combination of the massing and the flat roof that don't seem congruent enough with, and I guess where the flat roof is a detail. So I've got massing and detail issues. The materials seem the least important of the.
All right, so we've got two, sounding like two in the S camp. It sounds like Ned's in the no camp. You sound like you're right in the middle. Commissioner Durst, where do you fall?
Well, it's not my choice for an addition on my house if I had the original cottage, but it's definitely improved since we first saw it, and I'm in same camp with Jay. It does just barely meet all of the guidelines.
Okay. We have three there. All right, we can take a vote on this if that's what applicant's looking for. Is there a motion on the application?
I motion to approve German Village application, the JV 210127. That's the right one, right?
GV 2101027. Yes.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? I would make a clarification, Jacqueline, when we write this up, that the page 5 conceptual models, there are some deviations from what the elevations show. So we definitely want to make sure we're calling the elevations and not the conceptual model as part of the approval.
Okay.
All right. Any questions on the motion? We'll take the vote. Commissioner Panzer,
Aye.
Commissioner Durst,
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel,
No.
Commissioner Ferriel,
No.
Commissioner Foley,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Ayes have it. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay.
I love a happy customer.
Me too.
Moving
Bye.
on to, thank you. Item number 7, GV-21-02-008, 607 Lathrop Street. We have Mr. Ghosh or representative.
Yes, sir.
There we go. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
Name's Amit, A-M-I-T. Last name is Ghosh, G-H-O-S-H.
Thank you very much. Jacqueline, real quick before we get into this, did I recuse myself at this meeting from this one?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't have any notes for that.
Real close. I don't think I did. So I just want to make sure I'm being consistent.
Well, I guess I have a little bit of a question there. Obviously, Amit and I work together on projects often when I'm submitting. What was your thought on that, Anthony, if I could get that? Are you in a similar situation?
I'm distance. I'm
Okay.
outside the distance, but I try to be a little more conservative. This one's just beyond that, so I'm okay. I believe if you feel that you should recuse yourself, I'd recommend you go ahead and recuse yourself. We've got a quorum if need be.
I will do it just to be safe.
Okay. All right, Jacqueline.
Yeah, this application involves the relocation of a front door, installing a concrete driveway, installing a wrought iron fence 36 inches in height at the front yard, and a 6-foot-high wood fence at the side yard. So at the January business meeting, the commission noted that typically the style of house would likely have had doors at both locations historically, and there did not appear to be a lot of new door framing shown in the interior photos submitted by the applicant. So the commissioners requested the applicant to clarify if the door placement was historic and with any evidence to support it if that's not the case. If the door opening is historic, the commissioners noted that having a fixed light within the opening has been an option for past applicants, basically to serve as a halfway point between fully removing a door and having a door remain. So a photo from staff hard copy files dated from approximately the late 1970s does show a door present in the proposed location with no door in the current location, and it's unclear if there was a door historically in the current location. So staff recommends approval with conditions, and that condition being the removal of an existing door and installation of a new driveway should be supported by documentation demonstrating that the door location is not historic and that the driveway curb cut was present historically, and that's based on the standards for alteration, specifically 1, 2, 5, 10, and 12, as well as standards for site improvements, letter A.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry.
Good boy. Good boy. Mr. Ghosh, do you have anything else to add?
No, sir. Only thing I would say is I'm sure you folks have looked at the driveway that's to the north of me. That's I believe, 7 or 8 unit condominium complex. And I sent some photos. Their driveway need replacement, and they were saying that, it will probably look cleaner if you got your driveway approved and we pour it all together and slope it to the middle and look at the grade and work with the grade together. So I'm hoping that that's something that you would take into consideration, that it will look much cleaner than it does now. And if we can get the grades to go together for both properties, we'll probably have something a lot more tasteful looking than it is now.
Thank you. Questions, comments for the commission?
Sorry, I'm dreadfully confused on this driveway issue. Do we have evidence that there was a driveway there?
Staff did not find evidence to support it. I don't believe the applicant.
I doubt it. I think people would just there's a wide sidewalk, and I think people just parked on it.
So
Because
are
they
we
could use their apron and park on the side yard, so to say.
are we talking about a new curb cut? Is that what's going on here?
I believe so, even
Okay.
though I wish I could show it to you today. Of course, I can't because it's all covered with snow. The curb cut for the buildings next door is pretty wide, and it spans a little bit over on my property already. And historically, that's what people have done. They have used their apron and parked on the sidewalk, side yard. I don't believe there was an officially approved driveway here. Now, I did talk to public service. They said if you can get GVC approval, apron is not a problem because there's already a big apron right next to you.
So are you in essence just widening your neighbor's driveway to give yourself a driveway?
Yes, yes, that's what it comes to.
So from architecture's perspective, Commissioner Foley, you may know the numbers needed. Width of driveways, isn't there a code statement about that?
It's 10 feet minimum.
The minimum? So right now, looking at the plan, which is page 3 of the application, it looks like it's showing 11'9" from the edge of the house to the property line, but once the porch comes into play, it looks like it's down to 7'10". So legally, code-wise, I don't see the space for a 10-foot drive there. I think in order to have a legal parking space, there had to be some kind of easement or something legal with the adjacent property owner. That's my concern.
That's why I mentioned the abutting property owners, that they are willing to, in exchange for me going along with them and cleaning up part of their side yard and most of mine, they're willing to give me 10 foot. I have 8 feet now, and they're willing to say that, okay, I even mentioned the easement. They said, okay, no build easement, that's doable. Because they don't use that part anyway. It's just dirt at this point. It's not landscaped or anything.
And while I'm not saying that you would ever lie, I just meant being a legal body, I think we need to have a letter, at least from that other property owner, saying that that's what they were willing to do. I think that's what we don't want to do is go down a course where something happens in the future and then all this kind of blows up. That's my concern.
My concern is that we have not yet addressed the issue of the appropriateness of a curb cut at this location and whether it meets the requirements that we have set in our guidelines for a curb cut. I'm not saying it doesn't, folks. I'm not arguing against this. I just think we need to have that discussion before we start talking. I mean, of course, Anthony, what you're raising is, do we even need to have that discussion? If we don't have the property, if they don't have the rights to, an easement on the adjacent property, is there any reason to even discuss this? But let's not lose sight of the fact that what we're talking about here is an application for a new curb cut.
And I agree with everything you're saying there, Jay. If you walk down Lathrop Street, it's a street, but it's basically it's an alley. There's no parking is number one, so it's not going to limit any parking. There are these curb cuts all along here. So the property to the south has a apron parking pad in front. Two properties to the south, they've got a tiny little, which I don't think is actually 10 feet, drive there. So patterning, I would say that there is some precedence down the street. Now, whether we grant a whole new curb cut, being a new curb cut versus an extension of an existing curb cut, is kind of, I'm not sure if that's something that we take into consideration, but that's the condition that we're at.
I'm going to comment. I'm with Jay. This is about a curb cut or not, but patterning has never been an issue with us on curb cut, Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
It's whether we don't allow curb cuts anymore, whether there are 4 or 2 or none available in the adjacent properties. We've denied it. We've denied it everywhere. Even when I've got a curb cut 2 doors down, why can't I have one? We've said no.
Well, and there's the curb cut, and there's the
Oh,
issue of the
excuse me.
proliferation of cars parked at the front of houses in the yard.
I'm sorry. I want to make something clear, at least from my perspective. We do not allow curb cuts. It is not the policy of the German Village Commission to not allow curb cuts. We have a set of 6 guidelines that we are to employ to evaluate whether or not a curb cut is appropriate at a given location.
Right.
What I will agree with Ned on is, for the last several years, we have not found, and it's just been the last maybe 2 or 3 years, because a few years ago we definitely approved at least one, and I think, as a matter of fact, it may have been on Lathrop. We look at these guidelines as we do on everything else. We look at our guidelines. We look at the particular situation that is in front of us, given the unique characteristics of any given parcel in the village, and we determine whether or not those 6 bullet points, the degree to which they apply to any particular application. Then we make a judgment. We each make our own judgment based on those criteria. There is no policy of the German Village Commission to disapprove curb cut applications. And I want to be really careful that no one walks away from this hearing thinking that that's the policy, because it's not. At least it sure as heck isn't, in my opinion.
I think that has been the policy, and that we do not allow curb cuts unless one can be proven to have been in that location before.
Well, Ned, you're right, but the policy, the guideline amendments to the guidelines from 2005 don't really say it quite that explicitly.
They absolutely don't say that explicitly.
But they begin with construction of new curb cuts is generally not appropriate, and that there are a variety of factors that may be considered in determining whether a new curb cut is appropriate. So we have permission to consider those 7 factors in deciding. But
I would say that over the past,
rule is no curb cuts.
Over the past X number of, sorry, Jeff.
I'm sorry, Anthony.
Over the past number of years, I would say that of the applications for curb cuts that have come before us, the majority have been denied based on the criteria. A lot of them have being due to on-street parking. The vast majority are on-street parking. 2 that I specifically remember being approved. One was north on Lathrop. It was relocating a curb cut, basically shifting it north to align to a new garage. And the other one was over on 3rd Street. That issue aside, it was basically a 1-for-1 essentially is what the intent was. And it was allowing a curb cut on a side street where there was no parking. That one was allowed. So that's my recollection of what has happened in the past, I'll say 5 years. What has been allowed, why it was allowed, and everything else, to my recollection, was denied based upon the criteria and the guidelines.
I mean, I mean, as far back as that goes, Anthony, my recollection is exactly aligns with yours. And in fact, I think the one that I'm thinking of on Lathrop was further down, was considerably further south than this. And it, I think, had to do with a similar situation to the one we're looking at. And guys, don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing in favor of this or against it. I'm just saying we need to follow our rules.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I'm certainly willing to go to my neighbors and ask for a legal easement. I was waiting to hear your input and so forth. As you know, if I go ask my neighbors, and I think I'd have to go ask 7 different homeowners and get a no build easement for 2 extra feet, 2 feet 2 inches, and give them the consideration that they would require of me. If I came back to you, and you've all of you have articulated the things I was going to say very well, that there is no street parking on Lathrop, and the reason my sidewalk's all torn up is because people park on it, and so they park on my neighbor to the south. He doesn't have a driveway; he has front yard parking with a big curb cut, and to my north, that condominium complex, people park wherever they can. So, should I proceed to do that? I'm very much willing to do that, but I need some direction if I should pursue the no build easement from my neighbors. Like you say, we should have something concrete. If, as I said, historically, what people have done is use their apron and parked by the side of the house.
I'd ask the commissioners if, looking at the street view, right now it's you see that apron right there that's currently there for the condominium access. That turns into blacktop. You can see right there where the cone's at. From the edge of that blacktop to the applicant's house is grass. If commissioners are not in favor of extending or adding a curb cut, what would the commissioner's thoughts be on a pull-off? So basically using the current apron and access, but having a parking pad next to the house right there. I'm just trying to see if there's anything that the applicant can do, or if it's a non-starter and there's no point in even going after an easement at all.
Well, the curb cut factors that we may consider include the effect on the streetscape, and they specifically reference whether the curb cut will not diminish the streetscape, including but not limited to the front or side yard parking of motor vehicles. What we're basically talking about here is parking a car in the front yard.
Yep.
Could he come to an agreement on using that driveway next door and getting his car all the way around and back?
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
I do have close to 50 feet of space in my side yard. So I was not going to park any cars, and even if we park 2 cars, none of them will need to be 10 feet from the property line or, you know, the front line of the building envelope. So it would, I would submit to you that it's not front yard parking. Because the two cars will be, I can't park 3 cars and we don't have 3 cars. We have 2 cars. They will both be parked beyond the, you know, as I said, there's almost 50 feet, 45, 50 feet of driveway that if we get approval, that's how it'll be.
Can I ask another question, Mr. Ghosh?
Yes,
Does
sir.
your property extend all the way to the alley in the rear?
Yes.
Or is it stop short?
It's 200 feet deep lot.
So you extend all the way to the alley, and if I remember correctly, that alley, there's access to the rear of your yard from that alley directly.
Yes.
I think, in my perspective, I think that changes kind of the conversation about the front access from the front of the property being necessary. I think is kind of, it's no longer necessary if there is access from the rear of the property. And typically, vehicle parking, garages, parking pads, whatever, historically we put towards the rear unless there's no other option. I think that kind of puts me to the point of the no category if there's already access from the rear of the property off an alley. I'm not sure how the other commissioners feel about that.
I totally agree, Anthony. I had not noticed that, and I apologize.
Commissioner Thiel, I think you were saying something.
Yeah, Google Earth shows a car parked back there.
So Mr. Ghosh, I think to make the conversation about that short, I don't think you're going to have the buy-in from the commission to park a car to the side of the front of the house if there's access from the rear. I think you're better off readjusting that perspective.
Let me ask you this question, and it's not hypothetical. I do get asked every so often that, would you sell your rear lot to me? That's on Briggs Alley. No, I haven't agreed to do that, and I probably won't because, you know, my wife loves the backyard. But what would be the scenario if I didn't have the back lot?
So in order to split the lot, because right now it's a single parcel, you'd have to come to the Board of Commission for a lot split.
Okay.
So we'd have to vote and approve a lot split in order to sell off the rear of the yard. But I'm not going to go into hypotheticals on a future property scenario that we're not being faced with currently today.
The first step in that would be to talk to the city to see whether such a thing would be permissible under the city's own rules before it ever even came to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I think that on the table is still the other portions of the application, specifically the door relocation. I think the rod and railing out front, I don't think anybody has a problem with that on the commission. As far as the door, Mr. Ghosh, you wanting to board up the current door, or I know in other applications in the past I don't think there's an issue putting a door where a door once would have been or should be, but to remove the existing door, I think there was some pushback at the business meeting.
I was trying to understand if I put a window there that matches the windows in the front of the house, will that be acceptable?
Traditionally, a full light door is acceptable, or a fixed door even is acceptable. I don't think putting a window in place of a door would pass muster.
I was not going to open my mouth, but I'm going to say this. where I sit, whenever people have two front doors, the first thought today is that someone's going to start an Airbnb. Now, if I was devious, that's exactly what I would do. I would thank you profusely for allowing me to put two front doors, but I really don't want to do that. But if I don't have a choice, then I don't have a choice.
So the door doesn't need to be operable. It could be a door that's fixed shut. That happens all the time in the village. And you can choose which one you want to be operable. So either one fixed, one operable, or both operable is fine. As far as Airbnbs, those happen, but to have two separate dwelling units, again, that would be a code changing it from a single property to a two-unit property, which is, again, a whole different conversation. But just as far as the doors go, typically, houses of this style would have had two front doors, one in the existing location, one in where you have it proposed, and a lot of owners will just make one fixed if they don't want to have both operable.
But I could put in a fixed light that's 3x7.
It would basically be a full light door that's fixed and not operable.
Yeah, yeah.
It can be a full light door, but it can't just be a pane of glass. We stopped approving that.
Yeah. They make those that's a full view glass door, but it's not openable.
Yeah.
Yep.
You buy the slab and you fix it. You buy the door slab and you just fix it in place. No hardware, no nothing.
Okay. I mean, if I do the glass, of course, it won't match the door, but I can get a full view fixed panel glass door. It'll be fixed.
Yeah, and the door you select can go to staff for approval. Jacqueline can put you on the right path of that. But yeah, I don't think we have a problem with having a fixed door, even if it's full light in that location at all.
That would be more acceptable to me, and neighbors wouldn't think that I'm trying to operate an Airbnb.
Understood. So, based on the feedback so far, it sounds like the driveway is a non-starter. In order to get you approved on the door and the fence, we can separate the application, or you can remove the driveway from the application altogether. How would you like us to proceed?
You can separate the application from the what I've already submitted, if that's possible.
I think we could do that, and then if you would like, we could vote on the application for the driveway separately. You probably get the feeling it probably won't pass, or we could continue that application to a future meeting if you'd like to revisit a little bit more with some more information.
I would like to, because I know my neighbors, they will come before you in spring, as you can see from the photos, that they will have to come before you to fix their apron, because a lot of these things got torn up when they built those row houses across the street from us. So they would like to come before you probably a couple of months from now. And maybe if I could talk to the city zoning and see what their thoughts are and so forth, and go from there, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. We can do that. Is there a motion to split the application?
Mr. Chairman, I suggest you could probably do that without objection, without going through all the motions and seconding and all that business.
All right. And then if there's no objection, we shall move the driveway to a separate application. And I hear no objections. So that is passed. The first of the applications would be A, and that's going to be the door relocation. Mr. Farrell, just make sure I'm good on procedures. Can we do that without a no objection motion there?
Splitting the application.
Yep.
So routine matters that normally don't.
Okay.
Routine matters that
Okay.
are normally approved.
All right. So no objection, and that one passes.
Yeah, routine procedural matters, I should say.
Thank you. So then on the first application, application alpha, doors and fence, is there a motion? Anybody from the commission need a motion on the doors and fence?
I move on application GV-21-02-008 to approve application item A to relocate the front door and to install the wrought iron fencing as amended by the applicant, that the original door location will just be replaced with a fixed panel door.
Second.
Any questions on the motion?
Is that fixed panel door going to be staff approved?
Jacqueline, you okay with staff approving that door?
Yes.
Mr. Steele, yes. All right. Any questions? Do we have a second?
Second.
There we go. Any questions on the motion? We'll take the vote. Commissioner Panzer,
Aye.
Commissioner Durst,
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel,
Aye.
Commissioner Ferriel,
Aye.
Commissioner Foley. Commissioner Foley recused. I apologize. Chair votes aye as well. Ayes have it. That motion passes. On the second motion, there's a request to be continued at the request of the applicant. If there are no objections to the motion, we'll go ahead and pass that. Any objections? No objections. Motion to continue passes. We're good to go. So, Mr. Ghosh, if you just submit your door selections to Jacqueline, and she can go ahead and get that taken care of for you.
Will do, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the commissioners.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye now.
All right, we'll move ahead to item number 8, GV-21-02-009, Alpha, 637 South 3rd Street. We have an application. There we go, Mr. Thompson. All right, Mr. Thompson, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
Eric Thompson.
All right, Jacqueline.
The application involves the proposed construction of a new detached 686 square foot 2-car garage with occupied studio office space above to replace a previously demolished outbuilding. The new driveway would be installed utilizing an existing curb cut, and this application was previously reviewed as a conceptual application. So at the January GVC hearing, commissioners noted that the submitted materials answered concerns about the height of the carriage house compared to other structures, and that the box shape works for the carriage house and location. So staff recommends approval with any clarifications to be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate. And that is based on the standards for new construction.
All right. Mr. Thompson, anything else to add?
I don't think so right now, unless I know there's some commissioners who have not been in some of the early meetings. We're happy to entertain questions, but we've had a fair amount of discussion, I think, in the conceptual review. So nothing more to add to that.
Okay. Mr. Thompson, you're a little hard to hear, but I think I got everything you said there.
Okay, sorry about that.
You're good. All right. Any questions, comments from the commission?
Just this is Commissioner Foley. Just curious. Was that a Sanborn map that was included in there, and what was the year on that?
It is. I think it's listed in there. I actually don't.
I was trying to find the date. That's all.
1922 in the bottom right, left corner caption.
Okay.
There you go.
And so and I'm sorry I did miss the previous meetings, but that's in pretty much the same location. It does look like the new garage is slightly larger than what's on the Sanborn map, but that would make sense.
I don't know that it's more square footage. It's a different proportion. The old one was narrower but deeper.
Okay. And was there there was no historic photographs of that structure that were found?
Not that we were able to look at, no.
Okay, cool. Those were my questions.
What's the relative difference between the first floor of the garage and the first floor of the house? Like, how much higher does the garage sit from floor to floor?
I think we have if you can go to our section, I think that
If we go to page 9 of the application,
it's approximately 3 feet. I think you can see in the. So yeah, you step up into the main house a couple of steps, so that's shown.
Okay.
On the screen, I can't read the number, but my recollection is it's approximately 3 feet.
the bottom left corner elevations call out 3 feet.
Yeah, so and this is something that was discussed at the previous meeting. We're kind of think that the grade does rise across the site from front to back, but we're kind of building this into the grade a little bit. So then it's because there were some concerns about height and some of the machines, so done that to minimize the height, and both the apparent height from the street and from the neighbors in the back.
And I'm sorry, I have another question, and this is more for my fellow commissioners. So, in the notion of varying things for new construction, do we think that this has been varied enough? It's just a notion. I think that the window detailing locations would probably, particularly on the one elevation, would get us there. But I was just curious if that's been discussed.
I don't recall discussing it in that context, but I think that just looking at the east elevation, it doesn't look like anything from around these parts.
Yeah.
I have a question as well. And it has to do with the paving. The site paving, Belden brick is, and what I'm getting at is it's not specified as to what it is, and it kind of shows that it's mortared in place, and typically we do not allow that. As a matter of fact, we don't really ever allow that.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good point. We probably pulled the photo from Belden's website where they show mortaring, but no, the intent would not be to have mortar in that application.
You know, typically require dry laid on a permeable base. There have been cases. I guess the other question I was going to ask is, has the city of Columbus typically does not allow gravel driveways, and well, I understand that this is only a partial gravel driveway. Are they going to say that this is okay?
You know, we've discussed that here and had some discussion and debate. Our reading is that it is allowed, but we're aware that may be an issue that the city objects to. We've had some projects get through with it, we had others shot down for that reason.
Commissioner Panzer, if they end up going with the paver instead of gravel, is that a problem for you? Obviously, they have to come back to us if they can't get this through, in theory.
No, if it's a permeable surface, my big thing is that it's a permeable surface, and obviously if it's gravel, it's a better condition than if it's brick all the way across. But even if it's brick all the way across, if it's on a permeable base, then we're not going to wind up with water flowing down and ice forming at the base of this hill, which is the concern. In addition to watching cars float away down 3rd Street.
that's very much in line with our thinking as well. And we see advantages in the way that we've done it, but we know that there's been some that the city has sometimes objected to that, to permeable gravel surfaces for parking patterns and others.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? All right. And then the second thing we'll be looking at is the variances. I would say probably just quick mention those, and then we'll take a vote on both. It looks like the variance recommendations being requested are the garage height to go from 15 foot to 17.5 foot above grade. And the second variance request is habitable space above the garage. And again, typically we allow a bathroom or a kitchen, not both. I believe this only has a restroom for the plans.
I would just state, when you look at the elevate or the section drawing that Eric was referencing before, I think they've done a good job of trying to keep it in line with the existing structure from a height standpoint. So I would be in support of both variances.
If there are no other questions or comments, do we have a motion on the first application?
Item GV 2102-009, I have moved to approve as submitted.
Second.
Any questions on the motion?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the clarification that brick is to be dry laid on a permeable base is the intent.
We have no objection to including that comment.
All right, we'll take the vote. Commissioner Panzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Durst?
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel?
Aye.
Commissioner Ferial?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Ayes have it, motion passes. And on the variance recommendations, is there a motion?
On item GV 2102-009B, I move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? Take the vote. Commissioner Panzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Durst?
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel?
Aye.
Commissioner Ferial?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Ayes have it. The recommendations have passed. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks to you and all commissioners. Appreciate it.
For the record, I just want to say that Eric Thompson, in addition to being a fine architect, is a fine bass player.
Don't get much chance to do that these days, but thank you.
Pass on to Mr. Barnes. We appreciate the effort in the conceptual reviews. It definitely got this one pretty easy.
Great, thank you.
All right, item number 9, GV-21-02-010, 639 Mohawk.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have to recuse myself from this one.
Thanks, Mr. Steele. All right, looking for an applicant for 639 Mohawk Street.
Hi, this is Alan and Kathy. We're the applicants, but John B. Hall is doing the speaking.
I see Mr. B. Hall. I don't have any audio on him yet.
I expect he'll be with us in just a moment.
Mr. B. Hall, I think might be muted.
Hello, everyone, by the way.
Hi. Thank you for being on.
There we go. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
We do.
All right, and we'll start with your names. Mr. B. Hall, please state your name for the record.
John B. Hall, architect.
Thank you.
Alan Michaels, owner, and
Kathy Taub, owner.
Thank you very much. All right, Jacqueline.
Okay, this application proposes to install 2 Velux skylights on the north side of the original cottage, not facing the street. On the mudroom addition at the north elevation, the cantilevered enlargement of the mudroom at the northwest corner of the flat roof section is proposed. And facing the fence on the north property line, I believe the skylight is also proposed there. So wood trim and siding would be to match existing. Shingles on the small pitched roof would also match the existing shingle on the main house. At the west elevation, the applicant would like to add a new kitchen window in the flat roof section to face the enclosed rear yard and to match the existing windows on the main house. They'd also like to add a matching window to create a double window at the second floor master bath on the 2005 era main house facing the rear yard. At the south elevation, the applicant would like to add a new window in place of an existing false window with shutters, and this would be flanked by two new matching windows, creating a triple window on the main house. At a section through courtyard, the applicant would like to add a new fixed window between existing French doors and a hidden court between the 2005 main house and the original cottage as part of the flat roof section without public visibility. On the west elevation of the 2007 garage, the applicant would like to replace two mismatched 8x7 foot single garage doors with an 18x7 double garage door to allow turning into the garage. The door would be trimmed with faux center posts and painted to appear as two separate doors. And the applicant would like to replace the 8x8 single garage door with the door with wood trim in the center to appear as paired doors that swing out. So at the January business meeting, the commission asked for clarification regarding the dimensions of the alley, noting the right-of-way line appears to be 24 or 25 feet from the face of the garage door. And the commissioners noted that typically a single wide garage door would only be considered for alleys with less than 20 feet. So staff recommends approval with conditions and that the two garage door configuration be maintained. And that is based on the standards for alteration, specifically number 2, 9, and 12.
All right, Mr. Behal, anything else to add?
A couple things. Let me, I realize we put in a number of these double doors that look like two doors over the years. And I was wondering why this was so difficult for the owners to get in when obviously this garage is fairly new, right? It was built back behind behind the face of some of the other older garages on that alley. I think all the other garage doors on that alley do have double garage doors. And you know what it is? It's so odd, but that little projection of the gable of the single garage and the closeness of the garage door to that projection is what I think causes this condition that is, kind of odd because you would think that with 24 you could get in, but the owners now have owned this house for several months, and they're having a really terrible time using that center garage door. And our diagram kind of attempts to show that you're just squeezed, it's really got to be the combination of those two items, that little projection, which is maybe over 18 inches, and how close that middle garage door is to the projection. So I realized that, and I think many times in the past that we realized the 20-foot is kind of the issue. I just want to say this condition it's another condition that's causing this problem. So now I can go through all the other items. There weren't many comments from the business meeting on the other items. Do you want me to go through, or are the drawings clear to folks?
Oh, Anthony, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So for the commission, are there any questions that you have? Again, following business meeting, any unanswered items that the documents don't answer for you?
Is this a one-way alley?
I don't think so, but I don't know. Alan and Kathy, do you know?
It's not I'm definitely not a one-way alley. I mean, there's no signage indicating that, and I don't know about
Two-way
the
alley.
rest of you, but I've certainly driven it both directions.
Yeah, sorry.
It
I
is
had
a
trouble
two-way
unmuting.
alley.
It's a two-way alley.
Is it? Okay. And have you guys tried going in from both directions?
Yes.
And you still have that problem? Yeah.
Yes, it's even worse from the south side than it is from the north side. I'm not quite sure why, but I think it has to do with the trash cans of the people behind us where they place them.
So I think we'll tackle the garage here first, just because it was the first one brought up.
Okay.
So commission, the two double doors to a single wide door. Is there anybody against that in concept here in this location?
I mean, the only way I can get to it is to say that we no longer require two garage doors, period. We're going to type accept single, double wide garage doors because, I mean, where's the threshold? We set it at 20 feet. We've held it at 20 feet for I don't know. And I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing to do, but the reality is that this doesn't, I mean, this condition does not meet the threshold. And if, I mean, is 25 feet the threshold? Is 30 feet the threshold? Or are we just going to say we accept double wide doors?
I'm the stickler for two, so you know my position.
You know what? If you're pretty much in agreement against it, we're willing to take this off the table.
I guess to be fair to the applicant, Commissioner Thiel, your thoughts on two? Oh, Commissioner Thiel's recused. I apologize. Commissioner Durst, thoughts on two doors?
Yeah, I wouldn't accept it since we just denied it on another applicant, or just told another applicant they were only going to get it because they were at 20 feet.
Yep. Commissioner Ferriel? Jeff? You muted?
Yeah, I'm muted. Same.
Okay. Commissioner Foley?
Is the 20-foot a guidelines thing or is that a practice thing for us typically?
That's just been precedent. I don't think it's anywhere codified in the guidelines.
But I think it's based on the recommended minimum turning radius that actually came from either the city or like architectural graphic standards or something. It isn't an arbitrary number. It's a number that came from somewhere.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand the not having been around on the commission when that was set. Trying to understand the logic behind it. I think that I mean, I don't particularly have a problem, but if that's the way that we've interpreted that as a commission, I would be in support of maintaining that unless the commission wants to think about changing that.
I think in general, the straw poll is not in favor of a single wide garage door. So if the applicant wants to remove that, we can talk about that when we get to the voting time.
Okay.
Run down the list here, the skylights on the original cottage. Any feedback from the commission on the placement of the skylights?
The roof, well, two things. One is the roof material on that original cottage.
What did Jerry say on things?
I think it's slate, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's slate too.
Now we've not, in my recollection, allowed skylights in slate roofs in view of the public way, kind of ever. with the exception of when they are in, I think it's the last third of the roof pitch. Keep it back, basically out of view of the public way. We did, just FYI, we approved one not that long ago, but it was because it was in a slate roof that was at the end of its life, item A, and item B, it was totally out of view of the public way.
Yeah. But the house next door is so close to this that they are reasonably out of view, you know, but.
I walk down that block an awful lot, and both sides of that roof are pretty visible.
I would say the photo on page 13 of the application is what you would see, where you would see it. The existing house photos from Mohawk Street.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Boy, my computer's having trouble downloading this stuff.
Okay, well. I mean, if we want to save time, we can just say we'll take those off the table too.
The mudroom addition at the north elevation.
Yeah, the mudroom addition. Unfortunately, this house was built with a kind of a ridiculously unusable mudroom, and so this is kind of a stretch to make something that's just barely usable. And it's really hidden back there, hidden from view. There's a tall fence beside it.
Is it messing with the neighbor's windows or anything like that?
They have a 6-foot fence right there, and then basically they're looking at this blank wall that's right behind this blank wall. So I would say it's negligible as far as any impact on that. It's only that one neighbor that would be affected at all. But.
Okay, A3, the fourth page of the application shows it going from a blank wall to a little bumped up blank wall.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say we gave them something else slightly more interesting to look at.
So from the commission gathering, no issues on the bump out at the mudroom. Right, west elevation, kitchen window in the flat roof section.
If I could just make one comment here, I look at that window and think, could there be a worse proportion window for a German Village house than that one that we're replacing with the larger windows?
That would be on sheet.
It's not in the original portion of the house either, just as a reminder.
That's sheet A4.
I mean,
any heartache on that from the commission? I'm hearing none. Okay. And then the south elevation, a new window in place of existing false window with shutters. Sorry, picking through the drawings.
yeah, it's on A5. Yeah.
A5, that's in the upper left of the elevation.
And that's the original portion of the building?
No, that whole building is new.
Okay, I see.
I have one question on that. So there's the single opening that's shuttered. So I don't know what happened when they did that, why it's shuttered. But so we're showing a triple, and I guess I have a question. Would you all feel comfortable if you feel like you could approve the triple? Would you all also feel comfortable approving that or a double? And then let us kind of figure out, give us the option of some options on the interior.
Would the double just be the width of the two windows, basically taking off a third of the three?
Yeah, and recentering them where the center of the triple is. which is where the center of the single is right now.
So the windows would still be the same proportion, just the 2 instead of 3.
Yeah, exactly that same window, because we're matching the other windows on the second floor.
Any objections from the commission on that? The option of 2 and 3? Hearing no objections. Back one sheet to A4, top right corner, going from one window to a double. And again, this is the newer build portion of the property. Any objection to adding that double up there on the rear?
And it's the rear, it's virtually invisible.
Yeah, pretty much this whole back is not visible from any public right away anyway.
Okay, there's no objection to that. The section through the courtyard, new fixed window between existing French doors in the 2005 edition. So that would be sheet A6.
And this is really completely invisible until you get into that little courtyard, you know. So
Any objection to that? Hearing none. Okay, so of everything on here, the only thing that had objection was the garage door, which the applicant has identified that we're going to take that off of this application, and the skylights as well.
yeah, there's one other thing we didn't cover. It's on A sheet 9, A9. It's those larger doors and that louver. So whatever. That seems pretty obvious. I'm surprised you guys ever approved those 2 little windows in there. So.
Any objection to changing the 2 small windows to 2 larger windows and adding the louver above the door on the garage? All right, here no objections. So, Mr. Behal, am I correct in that you've requested that we remove the skylights and remove the garage door replacement from the application?
Correct.
That said, is there any more questions or comments from the commission? And if not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion on agenda item number 9, German Village, GV 21-02-010-639 Mohawk Street, to approve, as amended by the client, to remove two skylights from the application, to remove consideration for changing the garage doors from the application, and to allow either 3 or 2 windows on the south elevation.
Second.
Are there any questions on the motion? We'll take the vote. Commissioner Panzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Durst?
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel has recused. Commissioner Ferriel?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Ayes have it. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Anthony, if I may, I'm going to have to hop off now per the earlier email. Thank you, guys. Great to be back.
Understood. Good having you back. All right, I'll move on to item 10, GV-21-02-011. Real quick first, Commissioner Thiel, are you coming back for this one?
I'm back.
Just got to get your camera. There we go. All right, number 10, GV-21-02-011, 745-747 South 6th Street. We have Jeremy Little, looks like.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, looking for your camera.
Should be.
See a black screen. Circle wheel. Still black screen.
Anything there?
I'm not seeing anything. Jacqueline, you seeing anything?
No, I see the black screen as well. So there's a couple of things I can think of. sometimes applicants will have, a cover on their camera. If that's not the case, I don't know if you could try calling in on your phone and using the phone for video.
Sure. I'll give that a try.
Give that 2 minutes here while you try calling in. So while we allow Mr. Little time to call in here real quick for the commission, old business, the windows at 788 Mohawk Street that were a test case. It's been a couple months now. I've walked by it. I think they look good. Any complaints or issues that you saw when walking by that? And if not, any heartache of putting that on the approved list?
So Anthony, if I could jump in, I did bring this up at a wider preservation staff meeting. So I do want to know the commissioner opinions if it would be a good test case, but just for now, I think the consensus from my staff meeting was that they shouldn't be added to the approved list just yet, just because we want to see how they do in the field over time and how they hold up.
Understood. In my opinion, I think they're a good fit. I like how they turned out so far.
Okay, so good to continue for future test cases.
Yes. Mr. Little back yet?
Almost there. Getting signed in.
Okay. So Jack, we don't need to take any motion on that old business application there, correct?
No, I just wanted to provide feedback for the applicant. They had requested it after the windows were installed.
Okay. All right. Let's see the second, Mr. Little. Switch Mr. Little went away.
All right. No, I think we're back.
All right, I hear you. I see you. There we go.
Oh, great. Thanks
All
for
right, Mr.
bearing
Little,
with me.
please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Jeremy Little.
Thank you very much. Jacqueline.
Okay, this application is proposing to remove one of the existing front entry doors, the south entry door, and install a full light wood door in the existing frame for the purpose of combining the two residences into a single family home. The applicant would like to remove the south set of concrete stairs and pipe railing and then fill the porch guardrail to match the existing rail on the steps. They would like to paint the porch ceiling, the columns, and the rail and install new concrete steps and iron railing in the location of the existing north end stairs. The applicant would like to replace the existing rear door with a new Marvin Ultimate wood window painted to match the existing trim, and to cut a new window, a Marvin Ultimate wood window, into the north elevation at the second floor above the first floor windows, and those would be the same size as the first floor window. And then finally, the applicant would like to reconstruct the existing garage roof, shore up the garage walls, replace the side access door, refurbish 2 window units, and install 2 new garage overhead doors. So at the January business meeting, the commission noted that in the past, altering historic fabric by removal of double historic doors has not been approved. And the commission also expressed some concern about cutting into the historic brick to add new windows. So the commission did ask for clarification on whether all or some windows are proposed to be replaced, noting that new windows should match the existing as opposed to a mix of materials, such as a mix of wood and then some windows being aluminum clad wood. So staff recommends the approval of the garage repair, but staff does not support the removal of the historic exterior configuration of the building. And so the condition for approval would be to retain the historic duplex configuration and exterior features. And the basis for that recommendation are the standards for alteration, specifically 1, 2, 5, 6, 10, and 12.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Mr. Little, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I'll start mainly on the front elevation. The removal of the door, it's just removing the existing door, but keeping a door in its place, just a full light door, replacing what's there with a full light door, essentially. So we're not removing a door and not putting one back. The existing windows in the home, we intend for those to remain as is. The new windows that we're proposing, or just one on the north side, cut into that wall. That would be a wood window, interior and exterior, painted to match the existing windows. The window on the back side of the house, where we are proposing to take out one of the rear entry doors and create a window in that elevation. Purely as a matter of function, there's a kitchen going in behind that, and we needed that additional wall space, which is why we're proposing to put a window in rather than replacing with a full light door. And I think that's about it.
Okay. Question, comments from the commission? Let's stick with the principal structure first, and then we'll deal with the garage secondary.
Okay.
I'll just cut to the chase. It's never, I mean, 15 years or 14, whatever it is, we do not let this happen to a door opening at on the principal facade or even on a secondary facade of the house. If you want to think about, I mean, if you've got a kitchen problem back there, I might suggest going to a half-light door. But that's just anathema to us. You know, at least it has been.
Jay, just clarification. So on the rear, is it? I think I know what the answer is. But is it more so that trying to cut in the limestone sill is problematic, or is it just the fact of taking the door out and replacing it with window / something else?
Both.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, there's no both. I mean, you can fix a half-light door there and frame right into it. And I would think that would accomplish what you're looking for.
It is. I think we'd be willing to go down that road. I think we would prefer if we would be able to eliminate the stairs that would go to that fixed door on the west facade.
This is on the rear of the house?
On the rear of the house, yes.
I mean, I don't have any problem with that. That's not messing. I mean, it's a set of concrete stairs. Those stairs are not by their nature a piece of the historic fabric, either in terms of critical design or in terms of how they affect the historic fabric, i.e. the structure of the building. So I don't have a problem with that.
I think we'd be agreeable to a half-light door in that scenario then.
Any other problems with that specific door from the commission? Okay. Let's go ahead and move to the front of the house. So in this location, the request is to remove the stairs from the left front door and then infill with railing And to change the front door to a full light. And then the right side door would remain existing as is, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, I have a problem making a historically symmetrical double asymmetrical. I think in the past, when people have had a second door they didn't want, they've kept the door and the stairs as is, and maybe just put pots on them to denote that this is no longer the primary entry. But they had to leave the historic fabric in place. And even if it was still a double, we don't even let people alter their half of the building without getting permission from the owner of the other side to do the identical alterations on their half.
In a situation that the structure is going from a double to a single, essentially. Is that correct?
That's correct. It would be a
I
single
believe-
family residence.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat as Commissioner Durst of typically we want the front facade that had two entries to read as a front facade with two entries. I don't think we're trying to save the concrete steps by any means, but just the notion of steps is what in the past we'd want to keep. Any dissenting thoughts from the commission? Hearing none.
Okay.
So question for the commission specifically, if the steps remain, Richard Durst, infill railing, is that off the table as well, or are you okay with an infill railing?
Yeah, I prefer just to read as actually there were two entries and just put something that's movable on the steps to block it. I remember distinctly telling a previous homeowner that's what they had to do, that they couldn't just remove the steps.
I would say it's pretty common up and down 3rd Street for reference. The other item on the principal structure is sheet A103, cutting in a new window on the existing structure. You can make the comment. I don't think there'll be a disagreement on the commission that we typically discourage cutting into existing fabric. Anything else there on the primary structure you want us to talk through with you?
Any objection to replacing the front entry door on the left side to a full light fixed unit?
Commissioners?
I think I would still prefer that they match.
The two doors currently match. That's correct.
I'd also say they're historical.
That's kind of where my head was going. Is there, Mr. Little, is there a reason that the existing doors couldn't stay fixed? Fix the one as is?
No, it certainly could. The intent, at least from the designs, from the interior design perspective, is that room will become the primary living room. They did want the opportunity for a little bit more reflected light coming through that east side. Since we are undercover there, we try to capture as much as we can. But that's the main intent for that.
I think it goes back to Commissioner Durst's comments about symmetry between the two. If it was a double, we typically wouldn't let the one side do it without the other one. And to Commissioner Thiel's point, if we have a door that is, by all intents and purposes, stored fabric, we don't want to lose this stored fabric unless there's some extenuating circumstance in order to do so.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as the garage goes, commissioners, any thoughts on the man door specifically? A new wood door in the existing opening. I don't think that's a problem for anybody.
That door should match the existing door that's already there. The 5-panel.
And then refurbishing existing windows. I don't think we have any heartache with that in general. And the overhead doors.
I think we have the same issue going on here with the Coachman doors that we had earlier. Where did I just see that? I thought it.
Well, we had 2 other submittals with Coachman doors. One was not approved. One was approved today.
Right, it was, but the Coachman was not, I believe. Is that correct?
The Coachman on your first applicant was not approved. The Coachman on the John Barnes was approved.
Way different buildings.
Yes, extremely different.
And property locations, one being on a street and one being way back.
What was the, there was a Clopay that was approved, instead of the Coachman, sorry, I don't have that written down. Oh, the Canyon Ridge?
Canyon Ridge, yeah.
Yeah.
So would that be the recommendation in this scenario?
I'll make the comment that I was of the opinion that there was a Coachman door with a trim that didn't have that faux grain to it.
Correct.
Very minimal. But what's been shown to us today so far has not shown that. My personal opinion is if what's been shown so far is incorrect, and the Coachman does have that trim that we were looking for, I think it could be back on the table. But barring that information being presented, I don't think we can.
Okay.
But the Canyon Ridge has been shown to be a potential.
Yeah, that is the smooth trim boards on it.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe the specific thing is the Ultra Grain series, I think is what I had seen in hand.
Yeah.
So from the commissioners, a single door and then a wide door next to it. The opening right is currently shown as a single centered in a double opening. Any heartache with putting that double door in there? Okay. So, Mr. Little, are you asking us to amend the application for the Canyon Ridge, or do you want to leave that open to come back? Or
I'd like to amend the application for the Canyon Ridge.
All right, and then as far as the other items on here that seem to be non-starters, would you like to amend application in other ways?
Yes, we'll amend the application for a half-light door on the west elevation and still removing the steps. East elevation, keeping the steps and rail in their existing condition and keeping the existing south end door and fixing it shut.
And then there was the side elevation cutting into the new window that I don't think will pass muster.
Yeah, we can take that off the table too.
Okay.
The only other item to note that we just recently discussed would be re-roofing the main house in the Certainty 3-tab shingle in one of the approved colors to match the roof of the garage.
And house currently has asphalt shingles on it.
It currently has asphalt shingles, correct.
That's with staff.
That would be a staff approvable item.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the commission? If not, is there a motion?
I move on application GV-21-02-011, 745 to 747 South 6th Street to approve the application as amended by the applicant to retain both historic doors on the front entry and to retain both sets of stairs and not to rail off the door that is no longer going to be operable. On the rear elevation, instead of infilling, removing the door with the window and replace with the window, to just replace with a half-light door. That no window will be cut into the side elevation on the second floor. Then for the garages, the Canyon Ridge line of garage door will be used instead.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions on the motion?
Yeah, quick question. Are there gutters planned for the garage?
There currently are not. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. There are on the, it is on the north and south elevation. And it's wrapping around to the east as well, through sides.
Hold on for a second. I've got to get the application back up. So we've got exposed rafter tails. And I
think our intent would be to replace with what's there.
Well, what we always try to figure out with gutters is what was there correct, or was it kind of a hatchet job that was done somewhere back in history?
It looks like what's there, Jay, currently is vertical cut rafter tails.
And K-style gutters are I could see a downspout. I can't see the gutter clearly.
Yeah, it's a K-style.
Well, it's certainly possible at this era. I mean, if they're vertical cut rafter, I mean, yes, I guess if they're vertical cut rafter tails, they were always vertically cut rafter tails. So that to put gutters on it, you'd have to use a K-style. I mean, you wouldn't have to, but it would only make sense to.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
Okay. Any other questions on the motion? All right, we'll take the vote. Commissioner Panzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Durst?
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel?
Aye.
Commissioner Ferriel?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley has left. Chair votes aye as well. Ayes have it. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Little.
So
right.
I might note that today is the birthday of the woman who lived in that house for many years, who would have been 103 today, an old and dear friend of mine.
Well, happy birthday to her. Commissioner Panzer, can you call the next one? My PDF reader just locked up and I can't do anything.
Commissioner Panzer, you're muted.
Sorry about that. This is a conceptual application, agenda item number 11, GV 21-02-012, 1050 Acre Street.
We have the applicants here, Stephanie Wickham and other. Joseph.
Joseph.
All right. If you please raise your right hands. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
We do.
All right.
We also have Tony Hudson, Anthony Hudson on.
There we go. Mr. Hudson, do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
Anthony Hudson.
Thank you very much. All right, Jacqueline.
Okay, so this is a conceptual application. The application involves demolishing a single-story vinyl-sided kitchen addition and rear wood deck at the rear of the home. The applicant would like to construct a two-story frame addition with a combination LP Smart Trim lap siding and LP Smart Trim board and batten. They would be adding a 10 by 24 foot stained concrete terrace in the rear yard and installing a new roof with slate-lined shingles with the existing box gutters to remain. The applicant is also proposing a possible front porch, but the porch is an alternate and may not be built at this time. So at the December 22nd business meeting, commissioners requested evidence to support that. Nope, that might be the wrong thing. Oh, sorry guys. I think I might have the incorrect business notes, but I do remember the commissioners asked if the applicant would consider having the application reviewed as conceptual, which they have, and also to revisit the general guidelines to make sure that the addition conforms to the German Village guidelines.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Applicants have anything else to add?
Well, yes. During that earlier meeting, some of the concerns were the size of the structure, and I don't know if one of the concerns is the way we tied the roof together. So the roof does increase in height by 2.5 feet, as opposed to separating it with a transition from existing structure to new structure.
All right, commission, questions, comments?
I don't mind getting in trouble, obviously. This proposal does not begin to address the requirements of the guidelines pertaining to addition to historic structures. The addition dwarfs the historic structure. It does not let the historic structure read as a piece unto itself. It swallows it almost whole. Additions are almost never, except under the most unusual circumstances, allowed to have roof lines that are higher than the historic structures. The guidelines clearly require a separation, or not a separation, but a clear delineation, usually achieved by a connector, to delineate between the historic structure and any additions. I don't know what to tell you, but this is just a long way from anything that's been approved in any recent memory.
And kind of summarize Jay's points into some concise bullets. Height of the addition, being taller than the primary structure, is a problem. Engaging the primary structure on basically wrapping around the side of it and encompassing the entire back is a problem. Putting a porch on the front of a property that didn't have a porch, altering the entire streetscape is a problem. The massing of the addition to the primary is a problem. There's a whole lot of fundamentals at play here that can't get us past ground zero.
Well, let me bring a couple of points up. As far as the front porch, it's an alternate, but there are 7 brick structures all in a row, with I believe the 6 others having a front porch. And I think there may have been one there originally. I'm not sure, because it does look like there at one point was a front entry door that has been filled in with the window. That would be that right front lower window in the front elevation there, in the west elevation. And there are properties, one at 1042 Yale Street that wraps around the side, and also property 1054, which is next door. And I don't know if you have the overhead views that I sent from Google Earth that kind of shows the surrounding additions that had done previously.
I don't mean to interrupt, but one of the things and I am not looking at the Google Earth shot, nor am I looking back at Sandmore maps or historical precedents. But one of the reasons we don't approve these things anymore almost uniformly is the fact that so much of what was done in previous years before the guidelines regarding additions were rewritten, which happened about 10 years ago or so, is that we tended to we were losing a lot of the defining characteristics of the historic structures. And for that reason, we went through a very lengthy effort to rewrite the guidelines as they read now. So you can find examples of just almost everything in German Village, and depending on when they were approved, they might or might not have ever seen an architectural review by the commission, or they might have been reviewed under entirely different guidelines, as I think is the case for the homes that you're talking about, several of which I'm very familiar with.
So Joe Wickham here, property owner. I do want to point out, obviously, I believe these 7 were right in the smack dab middle of this block here, but I know they're familiar. They're referred to as the Magnificent 7, I believe, or something like that. But obviously, they were all they're all similarly constructed in that 2-story brick rectangular footprint. So when we kind of approached this, we looked down that line, and that's one reason we actually proposed that porch, was to realign ourselves with all those other properties and kind of bring that historic character back to our property. But regardless of that point, there was no other intent, including that porch structure, to kind of dwarf that historic facade that you see there. And then along the lines that Tony was referencing, if we could find those Google Earth images, that wraparound was also to keep us in line with the properties along this line of houses, as you guys are familiar with, across from Schiller Park, which essentially allows for the use of that space in between and maximize it, while also keeping the historic brick facade and footprint of the old historic house as the frontage to that street. So that's our thought process there. I do hear you, and we understand the whole height concerns. And when we first designed this and proposed it, obviously we were looking at our surrounding neighborhood, our neighbors, and what they had in their houses. So obviously we're willing to kind of take your advice there and guidance as to how we should adjust our roof lines accordingly. But just not a major point, but I grew up down here, was raised down here, and so we obviously want to honor the historic character of the neighborhood in our house as well. So we're really looking for as much guidance as we can get from you guys to kind of figure out how we can do that within this new construction.
You said something that was really interesting, and I believe me, I appreciate it because I spend a lot of time working on additions to buildings. And you talk about maximizing the use of the space. One of the things that we are charged with, and that is very clearly spelled out, um, is, and it's what architects call, and it occasionally makes me cringe, negative space. But it's the spaces, it's the empty space between the structures that can be as important as the structures themselves. And one of the things that we started losing, which is one of the things that led to the rewriting of the guidelines, is we started losing that space. We started losing that empty rhythm of structure, then empty space, then structure, then empty space. And the loss of that is kind of exemplified by some of the houses on your block. It's funny you refer to them as a Magnificent Seven. I've heard them referred to as the Seven Sisters. I've heard them referred to as a bunch of different things, but yeah, they really appear to have been built largely at the same time. I think the consensus is that they did not all originally have porches, but that several of them had porches added very early in their history. I have no idea whether yours was one of them. I kind of doubt, given the lintel above that window, I kind of doubt that that was originally a door. I would tend to think that if there's discoloration or damage or some kind of indication of something different going on below that window, that it had to do with a repair that was done. It's certainly not impossible, but we'd need better evidence than that.
And just so I can kind of understand, how we're kind of viewing this as well, I can totally understand and agree with your concept of negative space just from within the architecture realm. But I would also just question and ask, if we're keeping in line with the historical character of, your surrounding buildings and the community, what negative space is being added, what value is being added from our negative space versus the lack of negative space along the whole street. So again, I'm just kind of looking at that from the bigger picture of, saying, hey, why is this property's negative space more valuable than any other property? And I understand, guidelines were different at that time, but that's the kind of viewpoint we're looking at here.
The guidelines were different at that time, and what was realized was that there was a failure of the guidelines to appropriately address the issues of massing materials and details specifically pertaining to additions, and that's what led to the guidelines being rewritten. There were cases where buildings were and I use what sounds like a pejorative term. I just use it because it's really descriptive. Where buildings were swallowed by additions. There were examples where identical replications of buildings were built as additions next door to them, and you can't tell without a Sanborn map which was the original and which was the addition. And all of those things were added together into the realignment of the guidelines back again around the year, I don't know, 2010. It was before 2010, actually, probably 2008.
To add a little bit of context as far as those specific 7 properties, if you look at the houses, basically 1, 2, and 3, just south of your property, 1058, I think it is. It's the second one south of you. I believe that's the most recent renovation that has happened on that block. If you compare that to the one, I think just one to the south, which would be 1060, 1062, you can see that addition versus the one directly south of you, which I think is the oldest of those 4. You can kind of see the progression of the oldest kind of swallowed the most addition on the side. The second oldest was kind of pushed back, had a pitch, and then the third one, flat roof, low down, pushed way back. You can start seeing, I'll say, the correction of the design over the years to make that addition less kind of aha in your face as you're walking down that street, just to talk about kind of design evolution over the years. But yeah, to keep these additions, I think Jay, you said it in way back when talking about the 1058. The goal is you're walking down the street and you see it, but you don't see it. You don't do a double take at it. You kind of walk past and you're about a block down and you think to yourself, hey, wait a minute. Something was different back there. And you walk back to go look, you got to double check to see there's something new, something different. As opposed to walking by the first time and the first thing you see is, oh, that's different. That's not the intent to go for. And that's, again, using some general terms, that's kind of the purpose of the guidelines today, is to prevent things from standing out in of themselves and be more subservient to the primary structure that's there. And I would say that fortunately / unfortunately, we usually say that each property is an application in and of itself. In the situation of the Seven Sisters, the Mason Seven, whatever you want to call them, there is this group of buildings that go together for better or for worse, and it can be a benefit or a curse depending on how you look at it. And that's kind of part of this application analysis review, is how this thing fits into the as itself and how it fits into this chunk of properties.
Well, and this is Commissioner Ferriel. So am I right that this is the only one of those houses that still has its original facade without a porch?
There are the two at the very south.
Yeah.
One has shutters added to it, which we wouldn't ever do. But the one at the very, very south, just second from the corner, still has the principal facade untouched.
So that's a rare architectural feature among those houses that preserves the original facade as a characteristic of its time that we want to preserve. Otherwise, it creates a false sense of history that they all had porches.
And it's funny you should mention that, but the house with the Anthony, I'm sorry, I don't remember the number, but the most recent edition, it's the Jeremy's house. They requested to take the porch off the front of the house, and we would not let them do that because it was a product of its time. It was a product of the history of that building.
The porch had become historic.
Yep.
So, obviously the porch is in and of itself its own thing, but if there was verification that there was a porch there originally, then the commission would be on board with it. But if it was shown that there was never a porch there, then that's what the preference is, correct?
Yeah, I don't think the Sanborn maps show a porch there.
Yeah, we usually go back to the Sanborns for kind of primary evidence. And the only thing better than that is a photo. You can find a historic photo with a porch on it. That's evidence right there.
But of course, the Sanborn maps are dated.
Do we know which Sanborn we're looking at?
I think that one's the oldest.
I believe this is 1901. The second one would be 1922. The third one would be 1951.
Yeah, so we're not seeing any evidence of a porch ever having been there.
And the other thing is that rear addition is on the 22 map. So it's an old addition. And so it's not going to be able to be demolished.
Can I ask what determines that criteria? Is it the materials, or is it the look of it, or is it just the fact that it was built in 1920?
It's a little bit of everything. Historic, typically 50 years is the cutoff for age historicism. German Village itself being a district, it's more than just age. But in this scenario, it could show an addition, and if you open the walls up and you find new wood, new studs, it may be that the original was actually torn down, and what you have is a replacement of what was originally there, which is always an option that could be on the table. So
Right, it's on you to prove to us that it's not a historic building anymore.
Well,
Just pictures, or do we need to open a wall to show you that?
So being able to see the studs is kind of the dead ringer. Foundation types, if it's all of a sudden a cinder block foundation or a poured concrete foundation, and the rest of the property is all
Decorative
rubble,
block look.
yeah, that could be an indication. So there's different ways you can do it, but usually looking at the studs themselves, if it's new lumber versus old lumber, is a dead giveaway.
The other time we've allowed removal, and I want to say it was on Mohawk, is where there was in fact no foundation. So there was no option of leaving it because it was basically unsafe. I think that happened at one of the two houses on Mohawk, right here between Sycamore and Beck.
And just looking at Google Street View, you have more of a cut block foundation on the primary structure. It looks like from the street view, it's a what's the term?
Rubble.
It's a rust
textured block, rough cut block.
Yeah, in the existing brick part of the home, it's an old rubble foundation on the inside. And that rear addition is a block foundation that's a crawl space, whenever that was added, they had encapsulated the outdoor access to the cellar.
That was exactly the case on Mohawk.
So looking at this picture right now, directly behind that window against the brick is where there used to be old cellar access. And it's open to part of the existing kitchen addition. You can kind of see the block foundation there. Let me ask you this. So going through this design process, can we, for lack of a better term, can we encapsulate leaving that, obviously that foundation as part of our addition and build on top?
So I don't want to say can or can't, because there's a lot of extenuating circumstances, but the pieces to consider is how it connects to the main structure. Typically, the new roof doesn't get a tie in to the old roof, especially on that style roof. So a lot of what happens is applicants will choose to use that existing addition as the connector piece, and they put the addition basically to the rear of that. And that's one way of doing it, using that addition as the connector. Depending on the circumstances, you may be able to engage the side of that addition piece itself. And again, if we find out that's been a reconstruction in the 50s of something that was there prior, then if it's not historic, then it can be taken down. Then it's a whole different discussion.
The reason I ask is, the existing second floor is basically 2 bedrooms, with one of the bedrooms is access to a bathroom. So we're trying to create a 3-bedroom home here, and I need so the connection between this addition and to the new structure, I need to be able to have access to create these new bedrooms.
I will say that in some instances, I'm not saying it's right for this application, but in some instances, setting back from the side walls in the second floor has happened. I don't have a slam dunk answer for you. I think there's a lot of questions out there, but if you look around, especially in this block, you might see a few options of what have been done in the past that may be clues to the future.
Well, I think that's where we got started down this path, is looking what had been done on the street. And I think that was, I don't want to speak for my homeowners, but I think when they were looking at this property, they saw that availability, because the house in and of itself, as right now, does not serve their needs. And we're trying to come to a design that obviously we can accommodate what your goals are for the guidelines, but also accommodate their needs. And it's a little, I'm a little confused right now. I hear what you're saying, and I totally understand that. It's just what we're seeing, you know, that was what we see in the neighborhood is where our basis of starting was.
Can I, let me put my 2 cents in here, and I'm just going to leave it. In terms of examples of what's around, you can only use those insofar as they might be in conformance with the guidelines.
The current guidelines.
The current guidelines. The guidelines from 20 years ago are irrelevant to the discussion. The reason they aren't the guidelines anymore is because there were shortcomings with them. That's item A. So read the guidelines, follow the guidelines. Almost always that results in an acceptable outcome. In terms of the existing addition on the back, we just need, I'm not going to speak for anybody else. I just need more information about what its history is. If it was originally a grade level porch that somebody built a lean-to on top of it, I don't have strong feelings about keeping it. If it was in fact the historic structure and it's got a good foundation and it's not going anywhere, that's a different story. If you could build a second story on top of it, that might be a third story or the third issue. But this just doesn't give us a lot of opportunity to do anything other than sit here and design at the table. It's got to meet the guidelines. That's if it doesn't meet the guidelines, it doesn't get anywhere. It can push a little bit and it can tug a little bit, but this just runs right. This just totally ignores our current guidelines in way too many ways, for my taste. And now I'm muting myself for good.
So, and I think Jay speaks certainly for me in that regard. So our job is to adhere to the guidelines. So this isn't a process of accommodating what you'd like to do with what we'd like to achieve. It's primarily an effort to comply with the guidelines. And where the guidelines are squishy, why there's room for maneuver. But like Jay has said, even though it might be similar to some things in the neighborhood that were perhaps built before any guidelines existed or under a different set of guidelines, so we're not going to be in a position to meet our obligations to adhere to the city code and the guidelines.
Understood, I believe. I guess, I guess our next step is to relook at our design with the recommendations and the guidelines here, trying to facilitate what you're looking for. I guess I don't know where to start right now, Joe.
Yeah, so if I can help, and I just if you guys can appease me and give me some clarity. Again, we thought we were going by the guidelines when we read the guidelines, and it said it shouldn't alter the effect of the historic and surrounding neighborhood. So we're going to step back from that. But what I hear from the commission today is the predominant concern is the fact that the addition is engulfing the current structure, meaning the commission is really not in favor of any type of wraparound of the existing structure. So no matter what we proposed, the addition could not include that, is what we're being told today.
I would say it's generally a fair statement, correct.
But then outside of that, the actual addition to the rear of the structure would be acceptable if it bumped out, like you were pointing out, Anthony, Mr. Anthony, with the most recent approved renovation, where it does bump out a little bit to provide enough space for interior needs, but so long as it doesn't wrap around and engulf the existing structure.
Generally speaking, yes. And again, it comes down to how it comes together, what the details are, and everything else. But generally speaking, that's been a avenue of success.
Yeah, but then the first thing that we really need to come back and get guidance on, or at least present to the commission, I'm not sure in what format, but just proof as that additional kitchen structure and to its historic nature, essentially, correct?
We don't want to say that anything that is not a wraparound can be approved. Don't want you to get that impression.
But does that allow us to then present another design that includes at least some form of wraparound? We don't want to keep going back around with different design proposals.
I swore I wasn't going to say anything else, but I will point out a wraparound that was approved not all that long ago that I think, and I can't remember where it is, it's killing me, but it is separated from the historic structure. There's actually a gap. It's where a front entry exists, and there's a separation between the historic structure and the addition. So the addition kind of, you walk in and I think there may actually be windows on both sides, and then you go back before you get kind of curve around behind the historic structure. But that it maintains a separation.
Mr. Panzer, is that the one on Yeager Street that just sold recently? It's maybe a block north of us on Yeager Street, and the addition that comes out is separated but slightly angled.
That's the tilted addition. Bill Hughes' least favorite project. I don't remember whether that one truly wrapped around or whether that piece was the piece that's not the project I'm talking about.
Okay.
What I'm not sure of is whether that does address that issue in the same way of allowing you to use some of that space even on 2 floors, as long as it's kept separate from the historic structure. I don't remember where the attachment to the historic structure is on that particular project, whether it is back beyond the structure or whether it is forward, and whether Bill just did that little rotated tower as a thing.
And I'm willing.
Appreciate that.
That was before the current version.
Oh, that was absolutely before the current version. Yeah. That goes back like 25 years or something.
Precipitated the revision process, in fact.
Yeah. You would be able to get the lowdown on that, I'm sure.
Well, I have a resource here in the house with me on
exactly
historical issues.
Our former chair.
Well, Commissioner Pants, I do appreciate that insight. That's at least something that we could work with and try to conform to. But then, as I was mentioning previously, you guys are also looking for some type of affirmation as with regards to the current edition, as to whether it's historic, correct?
Yeah, if that current edition is not historic, I mean, it's a whole different ballgame than if it is. Whole different conversation.
And if it is, I would also argue, and I'd probably get pushback from at least a few commissioners, is its viability as a standalone structure. If it is, and again, this is what happened with the one on Mohawk, it was built on dirt.
Yeah.
It had no footings. It was not a sound. It was standing there and it wasn't going anywhere, but it was not a sound structure that could be incorporated into any sort of contemporary construction. That's the other place where there can be wiggle room for some of us. Some of us not so much.
And as far as the question of the connection, how it connects and how it engages with the primary structure, wraparound connections or connections of that nature, one of the biggest struggles is the roof line. How does the roof engage with the existing roof? Because we don't like having the current roof dying into, or the new roof dying into the current roof. There needs to be a separation, either some way. I'm just waving my hands around because why not?
No.
But wraparounds just tend to lend itself to being problematic to solve that. And that's why you see a lot of the modern additions being more of a connector piece, because it allows that roof to separate into its own thing. So it's
I think
just
that's how we see a lot of the flat roofs show up.
roofs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when I could see where, if, depending on what direction this takes, that, that what we've got there on that side wraparound is a new entry and a stairwell. But by dropping, and we're allowed to build above that existing structure, we can determine that is not historical. Dropping that to create a connector so that the proposed bedroom addition along the back side, we could create separation and basically create a flat roof in between those two. I noticed when I was looking at some of the, I'm going back to what's the existing there, where what they basically did was create a saddle between the two roofs. They didn't drop below the roof line. The flat connector actually sat on top. So we want to avoid that. Am I correct? We want to keep it down below that gutter, that box gutter line, to create that separation.
Yep, that's usually the best way of making it work.
Okay.
Not to get technical here, but are we able to kind of reevaluate and then also have a second conceptual conversation as well, or is this something that?
Yeah, you can have as many conceptuals as you would like. We have no problem with that. We encourage conceptuals, so it allows the open discussion. So we're not trying to vote on something that has been a ton of time put into and construction drawings put together yet. So it allows you to ideate some things and get some feedback before you lock stuff in stone.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I'm not as familiar with the construction world, but are we allowed, we need to figure out the wraparound, but are we allowed to build out to the south side of the house with the addition into that space if the existing structure or enclosed structure to be not historic?
Sorry, I want to make sure that you were breaking up a little bit, so I'm having a little bit of trouble. But let me. Are you asking basically whether the addition can be wider than the principal structure?
Correct.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, that's the simple answer. The more complicated answer is yes, as long as it reads as a separate structure. Yes, as long as it reads as something that is not historic. Yes, as long as ... But yes, that it is the simple width of the addition behind the principal structure is not where the major sticking point is.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Any other questions, feedback we can give you?
Do you have any concerns with the materials that we proposed, or do we need to revert back on a conceptual review with those?
Sorry, I never even looked.
So they have LP Smart Trim and then the LP Smart Board and Batten proposed.
What is it?
It's a composite material that it's smooth. In lieu of wood, we're looking for a better maintenance in the long term, but it simulates the.
I don't think it's something that we've seen before. So I mean, I need to see it. I need samples of it, and I mean, I know that the data is in here, but I need to understand a little bit more about it.
I can tell you that historically, we found success with Boral. That's usually proved all over the place nowadays. Hardy siding is not looked kindly upon. I don't think we've approved Hardy on a. We don't approve Hardy on additions to principal structures. We've kind of gone round and round and round and finally put the kibosh that we're not doing it any further. The LP Smart Side material, I don't think we've seen that. What we typically push away from is the faux finish, that faux wood.
Right.
But the a smooth finish is better than the faux finish. The problem we have with Hardy typically is, especially on long runs, that will tend to telegraph the wave of the building through it because it's just so thin and flimsy. We tried going to 3/4 inch plywood backer to try to minimize that, and still wasn't successful. So that's having not seen the Smart Side in application. It's needs to be basically you prove to us that it'll work.
Okay.
So material samples would be great, and if you can get those to Jacqueline, she can help you get them into my hands, and I'll make sure that the commission gets them in their hands.
I'm just scrolling through here. We've not approved recently, or other than maybe in a test case, which I think got rejected, the Timberline, shingles. I don't think. I think we just rejected them somewhere, didn't we?
I think those were the if we can pull that back up, the slate line.
I'm looking on page 42, no, 37. It's JAF Timberline.
Yeah, the
elevation. The other isn't, but
the elevations call out slate line. Or
yeah, it's that, you know, those samples there are of that's a dimensional shingle. What we're proposing is and maybe it is the slate line.
yeah, I think slate line's one of the ones on our list, is it not?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, slate line's buried in here. They're just a ton of the GIS products that are buried in here. I finally got to it. Typically on additions to historic structures, metal ridge rolls rather than shingling ridges.
And that's what we're proposing as well.
And I apologize. I'm scrolling through the product data, which includes a lot of stuff that I'm sure you're not using. I'm just getting to it as I get to it.
But yeah, we are proposing the slate line. It wouldn't be anything of a dimensional type.
Okay.
And then as far as windows go, there's an approved windows list. If you pick one from there, that's usually pretty much a done deal. Jacqueline can help you identify those.
And we do have aluminum clad on our current list now.
Yeah, we used to require wood only, but now there's some.
Right. Now I talked with the Architect Series through Pella, I believe is approved.
I think that's true.
Any other questions? Input we can give you?
Do we have any, so thank you for that feedback, very helpful. Do you have any concerns or comments on the proposed color scheme that we were using as well? We were similar to the 1058 Jaeger colors with the addition that they did, but the shade off given the kind of orangier color of our brick.
I'm partially colorblind, so I'll leave this up to the more color enabled.
I think maybe that slide 6 might be a better representation of the color scheme, if you wouldn't mind flipping to that one.
And I think we do have color samples that we had in our package.
I think it's been a while since we've spent a lot of time worrying about color, unless it's some really, really glaring color that horribly conflicts with, if you wanted to paint your bricks green or something, we'd have a problem. Well, if we wanted
If you wanted to paint your bricks at all, we'd have a
paint
problem.
them at all, we'd have a problem.
We don't.
Yeah, we don't like when people do that.
Yeah, we haven't spent a lot of time on color schemes.
Colors have to be pretty offensive to raise our hackles.
All right. Thank you very much.
There was the guy who spray painted his house green one year. That's 25, 30 years ago. Right down the street from you, Jay.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we've got some bright blues that we've had problems with 3 or 4 times now.
Oh, no, I'm wrong. He didn't spray paint it green or blue. He spray painted it gold.
Oh, God. We had a salmon color that was approved inadvertently. Somebody looked at the color only under fluorescent light.
Long story short, not much. No hatred towards his colors. To put it short.
We'll take it.
Tony, do you have anything else for the?
No, I don't think so at this moment. I appreciate you guys taking your time and helping walk us through this, and look forward to presenting something else again in the future here, getting a better response.
Well, we appreciate you taking the conceptual route. Definitely, it's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Yeah.
All right. Real quick run back to the 2 applications that did not have attendees. The first one was item number 3, GV-20-11-024, 1054 Pearl Street. Jacqueline, how many times has this one been continued?
Enough that it does need a vote.
Okay. Is there a motion on GV-20-11-024? Somebody give me a quick motion.
Sorry, I'm trying to find it. Okay, I have a motion on agenda item number 3, GV-20-11-024, 1054 Pearl Street to approve as submitted.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? Commissioner Panzer?
Nay.
Commissioner Durst?
Nay.
Commissioner Thiel?
No.
Commissioner Ferriel?
No.
Chair votes no as well. Noes have it. Application's denied. Item 4, GV-21-01-024. Jacqueline, any information on this one? The columns on the Blue House?
I haven't heard anything back from the applicant, but they've, believe only been continued once before from not attending.
Correct. Is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? If there are no objections, I'll go ahead and make that approved. Any objections? Approved. Unanimous.
Anthony, these routine continuances are another sort of thing we can normally do without objection.
I figured as much. All right, and the very last piece on here, old business, the GV-21-01-017, 225-227 Thurman Avenue, the tree removal. Jacqueline, any update on that?
So I did hear back from Commissioner McCoy. I wasn't sure if she was gonna get to me in time. So I did get some helpful feedback that I can put forth towards the applicant. So I think I'm okay for that.
Okay. Then if nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Second.
Barring any objections, are there any objections? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much, everybody.
Anthony, can I call you for a couple of minutes?
Give me 5 minutes and then give me a call.
Will do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank